Hi, I'm Gordy Gundaker. Welcome to the Dirt Parlor Podcast.
Hi, I'm Don Martin. Welcome to the Dirt Parlor. And this thing is big. Welcome to our first Dirt Parlor Podcast. Our podcast is sponsored by Nutrien, Hoker Trucking, Bodies by Skinny, an official Longhorn dealer located in Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm Don Martin. Across from me is Gordy Gundaker. This week we will be recapping last week's races and also coming up with this week's events. We will be discussing the high limit racing last weekend at Tulare, Bakersfield, and Paris. We'll be talking about the World of Outlaw late models at Swainsboro, and we'll also be recapping the events at the Lucas Oil Series at Brownstown and Atomic. Let's go ahead and start by talking about last week at high limit. I think the first thing we know that Brad, of course, came out, and there were looking great as always, has the point lead, of course, this time. But Tulare kicked off, and we all saw Kyle Larson do his thing. And, of course, you mentioned to me last week going, well, if I'd have known that the track was going to be the way it was at Tulare, being heavy and stuff, I would have never, ever went against the 57.
No, you can't. Man, you ask him anytime we've raced on racetracks together and late model stuff, he gets out when he runs midgets and sprint cars, and he always talks about how much fun he has when it's balls out, rough as can be, and I mean that's just what he does, man. He's the best when it comes to track conditions like that. You're just not going to beat him. He's willing to put his race car in positions that other guys are not willing to do and make moves, and he never loses speed when it's like that. You see a lot of guys that kind of back off some and back their corners up. You watch Brad do it in that race. You could tell he didn't want to go hammering in there, and Kyle's just not afraid to do it. And that's what happens when you put a guy like that on that racetrack. He's going to win it 99 times out of 100.
Well, you also had to be really impressed with Corey Day. I mean, he had a tough heat race, comes out of the B, and we know maybe you can talk about the fact that, he's not points. We're only going to see him about 30 to 35 sprint car races this year. So I feel cheated there, but after especially what we saw last year. But good for him, and we know where he's headed. He's going to be a superstar.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of one of those guys too. His driving style and Kyle's are very similar. Guys that are willing to get up and bang the boards, but when it gets rough like that, they are on the hammer and they put their race cars in good spots still, even when it's like that. I mean, Corey's obviously a natural talent, and he's gonna go a long way in this sport. Not obviously just in dirt racing, in motorsports in general, at the NASCAR level. I mean, I'd say it's a couple years and we're going to see him on Sundays.
Well, the one thing about, too, you got to look at, Brad has not missed a beat. We're right back to point. Is there a better point racer?
No, not right now. I mean, you could argue, when Donnie was doing what he was doing, that, he was. But, I mean, you look at Brad, what does he do every night? If they have problems, he finds a way to come back and salvage a 6th, a 7th, and 8th. He puts himself 2nd, 3rd, 4th on nights. He's on the podiums. He does what he has to do to win championships. Those guys don't have failures. They don't have mess-ups. And when there is something he gets caught up in or anything else, they're back on the racetrack and they're salvaging what they can. And that's how you win championships. That's how you win so many in a row as he's done.
It's hard to imagine 5 straight World of Outlaws. And now with high limit, this could be 7 championships in a row. I mean, we don't talk about, I don't think that enough. How consistent his program is.
Yeah.
And
even with the crew chief switch this year.
Yeah, right.
Right. I mean, he loses his crew chief that's been with him through all of this, and nothing's changed.
And the business side of things. I mean, he's with the high limit, the guy's wearing a lot of hats.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing we got to talk about too. I mean, Reitzel's situation, goes to the hospital at Vegas with the Rock, and then the next thing you know, here he is. He still says, I'm not running the rock cards. I'm not doing the screen.
Right.
And he comes out there Saturday night and he wins. Yeah. I mean, you got to give the guy.
Man, that's impressive. I was watching live when it happened, and obviously you didn't know what was going on. You kept waiting to see. You knew somebody was going to post a photo of it, and man, when I saw the picture of his helmet, for one, that was brutal. I've taken rocks off the helmet. I've had shields cracked and different things, but for something to go blatantly all the way through the through the visor like that and hit him square. Luckily, it wasn't as bad as it could have been.
Exactly.
Really at the end of the day, but really cool to see him and his entire team bounce back a week later, get a win. I can only imagine what morale. I mean, heck, they put Sanders in his car and then he goes out for the feature and blows the motor up.
Yep.
So yeah, it was really cool to see those guys bounce back and get a win on Saturday.
And that brings me to what I'd like to talk about a little bit with you, being a racer and out there. And you talk about the rock guard situation a little bit. It's optional. What are your thoughts?
Man, you'd be hard pressed to find me without a rock guard. I think any racer at this point that's been racing long enough has had something probably come through those rocks, big dirt clumps, different things. I had a big piece of dirt come through mine at Eldora that actually hit the little Lexan piece right in front of me, and it broke it off. And when it did, luckily it didn't break it off sharp, but when it broke off, it actually kind of skinned my neck, had kind of cut me and all that stuff. And I couldn't imagine, especially those guys going as fast as they are, not running one. The vision thing, some guys say it's, I can see better. Man, I just, I don't know, maybe I enjoy living too much. Not exactly sure, but yeah, it's pretty wild. Some of those guys don't run them.
It's, and then while we're still on the sprint car scene and we talk about Cowtown with the World of Outlaw sprint cars, David continues his domination. And he's already over six figures for the year, which here we're in March. Mm-hmm. That is crazy. And so you look at that with his domination already, and I mean, what are your thoughts? Cody Jacobs a little bit.
Yeah.
They're my opinion, from what I see, they're a very arrogant. I shouldn't say arrogant. They deserve to be.
Yeah.
Because look at what they've achieved.
Yeah.
And so when you look at that situation, that he's paid his dues. I mean, no doubt about it. He's paid his dues. He's confident. Cody, you got a very cocky but the guy busts his ass. I love it, actually.
Yeah.
And so you're looking at a team. I mean, they feel like we've worked this all. I listened to the interview the other night. He goes, well, in the off season, we did some different things. We're ready again. And he goes, I think they were better prepared probably than anybody.
Yeah.
Even after winning the championship.
Well, and I think, it starts at the top with that program, right? With Todd Queering. Todd gives those guys everything they need to succeed. And you got to have that in our sport to compete for championships and win races. You look at a guy like David, who has now been in sprint cars a long time, has, like you said, paid his dues. He's won big races. He couldn't find a way to clip off a championship. He gets one, and now the sky's the limit from here on out on him. And those guys right now on the Outlaw Tour are going to have a lot of trouble winning races because he's had nights where he started third row, he started on the front row. He's had different issues, and still he finds a way up front every night.
And the other thing is, he's racing and winning races at tracks that he's not really that comfortable at.
Yeah.
Can imagine when he gets to some places where he's like, oh, yeah, now I am comfortable.
Well, and I think too, and you're seeing on the late model side as well, from my point of view, but you look at their race car in general, watching it go around the racetrack, it's very balanced. There's not a lot of bobbles, always making speed, whether he's running the top, running the bottom, running the middle. That's a big deal, and that's goes to give props to Cody and his entire team there that bring a great race car every night for David to drive. You hear him every time he gets out. He talks about how good his race car's been. At that point, it makes your job a lot easier as a race car driver. But he's excelling even past making it look easy. I mean, he's going out here just clipping them off one after another.
The chemistry, everything they have. And speaking of chemistry, I mean, you got to look at Bobby Pierce. Goes to, Smoky Mountain, wins. Goes to Swainsboro, wins and gets a podium. Last year, at the end of the year, when he went to Georgia at Sonoya, didn't even hardly make the head on Castro Flow for the championship.
Yep.
We all saw it. It was miserable.
Yep.
Unloading the backup car, getting lapped, RTJ taking home the money and doing what he needed to do. And tell you, were you surprised at what you're seeing, what he did down south?
Yeah, I think it surprised a lot of people, because I think as you look at it, Bobby's reputation runs him as, when there's that big cushion, he's going to get you. When there's some moisture in the racetrack, they're going to be up front. It's normally that super slow and slick, no grip, that guys look at that as a situation where they think, that they're going to be above him at the end of the night. And that just didn't happen. They timed in good, and they feature raced good. I felt like at Swainsboro, obviously they go out there Friday night, and they're just, they were the best. He was the best car, and it was obvious. The week before at Smoky Mountain, I felt like JD maybe had a chance at him, but that was the only one, and JD's been the best car in the country. So that tells you a lot about where Bobby's program is right now, which is dangerous for everybody else, because if he's able to figure out that next step, when it's slick and slow and those things, it just draws trouble for all of us.
Well, I think that when you look at Bobby, and JD had a bad breakthrough, the lap car, Friday night, that stunk.
Yeah.
Because it looked like he was hunting.
Yeah.
And it looked like it was going to be a great race.
Oh yeah.
And I think that you just look. I expected, JD to run up good, run down good south. But you know what? The one thing about JD that I've always been impressed with, we always talk about when you go to Eldora, he's probably the best driver since Scott Bloomquist to run Eldora.
Yeah.
So when you look at JD, but JD's better on the small bull rings than we ever give him credit for, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think you'd probably agree with that. You've watched him. And I've watched him at Fairbury. I've watched him. And that takes us to the Lucas Series, of course, going this weekend. I look at Atomic. We had Atomic Friday, and then, of course, we had Brownstown on Saturday. I thought the Brownstown race might have been the best race of the weekend.
That was it. I definitely was. I didn't actually watch it live Saturday. I went back and watched it last night, and I couldn't believe, at one point there, the guys that were second through eighth were all together in lap traffic, 3-4 wide. That was probably one of the better races I've seen as a complete race in a long time, which was awesome to see. But yeah, those guys were all of it. And granted, Brownstown always puts on good racing. That is one of my favorite racetracks that we get to go to. It's a completely technical place. It's shaped weird. The top's a long way around. The bottom's a super short way around. And those guys were slicing and dicing all over it. They put on a hell of a show, and it was weird because you kept thinking, okay, JD's going to get back going again. He's going to go back by. Then Devin takes off there. RT runs him down, slides him.
Marlar was looking great in the Wells car.
Yeah. So there was a lot happening just in general, and it was good to see. It was refreshing to see from my vantage point, to see some really good racing, where you got guys 3, 4, 5 in a pack together, really sliding and using 3 or 4 lanes.
And the other thing is, when you watched it, and I hated to see Brandon Shepard. It was him and Hudson, that racing. It was a racing deal. I don't think Hudson saw him, and Brandon at the same time was making a run for it. It's just bad luck.
When I saw it, to me, it looked like Sheppy was actually off the racetrack first. The right rear was already off the front stretch, and then I think Huddy might have got him a little bit. I don't think Sheppy's coming back on the racetrack if Huddy's there or not. Now, granted, he moved his lane out there because Huddy was swinging, but I think it was just you run out of racing room and you're going hard and you're going for it. And Sheppy's pushing right now. Yep. They've been struggling a little bit, so he, when he gets going after it, he's not going to just lift. So kind of put himself in a bad spot, I think. I bet if you go back and ask him now, he would have probably, either just lifted and tried to turn back underneath Huddy, but it's just part of it sometimes.
It's funny you mentioned Brownstown. I know you love Brownstown, Illinois, too, and they kicked off their practice last week. So, so it's nice to hear you like. If you had to pick one or the other, I'm just curious. You like Brownstown, Illinois? You like Brownstown, Indiana? Because you're really good at that Illinois track.
I don't know. I think.
And you've won?
Yeah. Nah, it's one of those things. I think I like Brownstown, Indiana more, actually, because I'm not the guy that's going to go beat the old janky guardrail down at Brownstown, Illinois.
Gotcha.
Those guys are, that's a tough deal to do. But I've always had good runs at Brownstown, Illinois. Usually what ends up happens is it gets real slow, and guys got to really patient themselves around the bottom, and most can't do it. So I think one summer national race I took a provisional there and drove from like 26th to 4th. So I love racing at that place.
That's awesome.
And Josh and those guys that took it over, they do a great job.
And I wanted to get back to, there was a gentleman that we've been watching. Me and you both love watching Anthony Macri race.
Yeah.
And we saw the struggles he had at the beginning of the year in Florida, and I think we were all surprised. Evolution, even watching where he go. I mean, it seemed and dropped out of quite a few races. And for him to go back home, and I want to talk to you about that. Here he goes back home, goes to Port Royal, and you got Dietrich and those guys who've already raced, a little bit there at home. And he goes in there and pretty much typical Anthony Macri, the concrete kid.
Oh, yeah.
What he does at Port Royal, he gets it done. And I want you to talk about it because Williams Grove opens up Friday. Where do you see now? You think now Dietrich and those guys better hold on because now that he got that?
Well, and I think one of the things that plays into that, right, is Macri goes down south and runs all those races. You realize where your program's really at. You know you have to step it up some, and you also realize how hard those guys run in Volusia, down south early in the year. That was one of the biggest things that helped me was when we went and ran the Outlaw Tours. You go down there and you understand the pace of the races and how these guys take care of their cars and maintain races. And then you take him back home where he's super comfortable and he does exactly what he's supposed to do. I think it's dangerous for those guys up there because, man, when he's up to speed, he's one of the best cars in the country anyways. Now he's going to keep searching for more because he knows he has to do more to line up with the guys that he wants to compete with on the high limit series, on the Outlaw series. So I think it spells trouble for the guys out in PA.
I think the one thing about Anthony Macri, and I said, he's the fun meter guy, right? Yeah. He's the guy when you watch, it's fun to, I'm glad to see him picking it up now because he's one of the most exciting drivers to watch.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got a funny story. Actually, the first time we went to Port Royal, they ran the sprint cars there with us, and I always wanted to go to that place, right? So we get there, sprint cars there. Anthony Macri doesn't know me from a hole in the wall. I don't know him from a hole in the wall, right? So we don't know each other. But I rolled up to the racetrack on my pit bike. They're rolling the racetrack in, and he's standing right there. And I just pulled up next to him. I said, man, I came all this way just to watch you run the fence tonight. I said, I could care less actually about what I'm about to do. I said, I just want to watch you run the fence. And he just kind of laughed and walked on. And, wasn't much said. And then we run our feature first. By the time I got out of the car, went back up there to watch it, come up, there's a red flag, and he was involved in it, and I didn't even get to watch a lap of it. So it sucked. But, that's one of the things. I mean, him running the fence up there at Port Royal is something special. So it's a pretty cool deal, and he's a hell of a race car driver. So it's cool to see him venturing out, to these big races and traveling the country and, trying to excel in areas he's, not great at.
Well, I think that brings us now, I think the next thing we want to talk about is our top 25, brought to you by the Dirt Parlor Top 25, the Warden Rankings, and it's brought to you by Nutrien. And we'll start, where do you want to start? You want to start on the World of Outlaws side, or you want to look at the sprint car side?
Let's start with the sprint cars. I think that's probably a good place to start before we get to arguing about the late models, because I feel like that's going to happen.
Well, first of all, our system is all on merits. There's no politics. It's all based on podium finishes, top 5. You win a 10,000 win race, you get 3, 2, 1. 15,000, 4, 2, 3, and we keep going up. And basically, if there's not a 4,000 or 5,000 win race, I don't think it even exists in my eyes. Yep. So you can disagree with me a little bit on that too as well. But just too much going on, actually. And really, at the end of the day, these are the professional race car drivers, and these are who you pay to watch. I think when you look at the top 25 sprint, I don't think there's any surprise it's David Gravel.
Right.
Of course, people could go, well, but Kyle also hasn't raced as many races as David has. But even if he's there, I mean, I still think probably David could be on top, my opinion. Macedo Schuhart and Brad, we all know. Brad, I look for Brad to move up because, it's Brad. He hasn't raced as much as a lot of guys too. And then I think there's some surprises naturally on there that we've looked at. Sam Haferty has been on the podium the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, he's done a great job, and then I think it helps because they were in an area he's raced a little bit, with the ASCS stuff and different things. But yeah, I mean, he's done a great job, especially going there with the Outlaw guys. I really thought the one night at Cowtown, whenever I don't remember who got by him, maybe Buddy, I think it was what got by him. it kind of looked like Sam got erratic and was just going to kind of fall out of the picture, and he was going to run 6th or 7th, and then 5 laps later, he's back on the tail tank, running those guys down. So, yeah, he's done a really good job just across the board. So, I mean, that says a lot about, he's been racing a long time as well. So, It's cool to see him start to get some finishes on a national level.
I think one of the most impressive drives I saw last weekend was Casey King.
Yeah.
I did not expect that, but it's obvious. Brad, there's some chemistry there, and it's always good to see Casey run good.
Yeah.
Dude, this guy owning a car, everything he's done, he does this because he loves it.
Right.
And I think it's a great story. Every time he runs well, you just got to clap your hands.
Yeah, no, it's cool to see. He gives back a lot of the sport. You see what he's doing with High Limit. Help bring a lot of the money to those teams and stuff. So yeah, it's cool to see Casey get a podium finish there. Would have been really cool to see him wrangle a win away. That would have been the upset of the year easily.
He's never won a World Outlaw.
I know,
it's crazy.
Yeah,
and maybe this is the year that he starts putting things together, and I think it's exciting. The other one on the board that I watched last week, and it looked very impressive to me, is Austin McCarl.
Yeah.
Because it looks like they're going to run a true outlaw schedule this year. They're going to run all over the place. Yeah. And so I think it's very exciting to see Austin, and I love his interviews. I mean, the family with Terry and them, they're comical.
Yeah,
and
they are too.
They're comical, and they're great for the sport.
Yeah,
So I think when you look at that list and we go, oh, Rico's all the way down there, at 19. We all know that's going to change.
Yeah,
he's going to move up. He's going to get flying up, and a lot of these guys are. Some of those guys, I wouldn't be surprised to see some of them kind of where they are. We'll see. But now we're going to get into some arguments, folks, because we're going to get to the late model side a little bit. He can argue with me a little bit, but it's early in the year. I think some of these guys are going to stay where they are? No. Okay. But as of right now, because we had Votto and Florida and a handful, so these are guys that are gotten off. My opinion, and I don't have a problem with it, and I know Nutrien is our sponsor, and I don't care, you throw politics off. JD is the most consistent car in the country.
Easily. Yeah. It's when you watch him, they've gone now to I don't know how many different racetracks between Volusia, Ocala, you look at Swainsboro, or not Swainsboro, Smoky Mountain. There's a lot of different places they've been, Atomic, Brownstown, and he is up front every night. Every night he's battling for a podium or a win. Heck, he ran second I don't know how many times to start the year. Then they clipped a few wins off. So, yeah, they've definitely got their stuff rolling the right direction, and they're going to be, they're tough anyways, but just how they're starting this year, I think anywhere he shows up to, obviously he's got a shot at winning, but now they've really pushed the game even further onto the rest of us. Like, man, we got to all pick it up, because if not, they're just going to leave us in the dust.
Well, I think the top 4, in my opinion, it could be that way almost all year. They could just go from 1 to 4, 2 to 3.
Yeah,
that's very competitive with those first 4. What I'd like to know from you, from watching everything outside of that 4, who's the guys that you think are going to push that top 4? That if could one of those guys, somebody surprise you get in that top 4, or you see somebody that's is it Gustin?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the biggest surprise, I think everybody would say on that list, is Ethan Dodson, and I don't think I'm not surprised, because you've seen the results, you've seen the speed, but I don't think if you looked 2 months ago before they started, if you said, hey, Ethan Dodson's going to be in the top 10 rankings here after these races in March, I don't think a lot of people would have thought that. But they've done a great job. Tyler Brashears and those guys down there with John Henderson owning that stuff have done an incredible job building a great team, and with Longhorn and all that stuff. So they're doing great. Cody Overton's a big surprise to me.
Me too.
I think that's pretty cool to see. I think Gustin is definitely going to be a guy. Obviously with Cody Mallory on board now, that's gonna excel their program, in a big way. So I think I think we're gonna see him in that top 10 all year. I think he'll definitely give a run for that top 4 spots.
I think Hoffman, Shepard, and O'Neill are going to go.
Yeah,
they're moving. Hoffman
Yeah.
especially.
Yes, yeah.
He's not going to stay. He's like,
Well, I
you
mean,
can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think too, obviously. I mean, Nick and I are best friends, but it's not even about that. You see, he had a bunch of speed at Volusia and just had bad luck after bad luck. Goes down there, runs pretty good at Swainsboro, was pretty good at Smoky Mountain. So that definitely he's definitely going to exceed through there. Just part of going down to Speed Weeks, man. Sometimes it doesn't go your way. But I'd say at the end of the year, I mean, that Outlaw Championship is really between, only a couple guys in my eyes. It's you got Nick, you have Gustin, and you have Bobby. I think that's the first three you look at, and I think those three are going to be the ones that end up duking it out. You could throw a guy like Max Blair in the mix that's going to probably rip some good runs off, but those three are definitely the ones that you're looking at, outright.
The one thing that also sticks out to me a little bit too is the fact that when we look at the list a little bit, that I keep looking at a little bit. Corey Hitchcox has some good runs. Josh Rice.
Yeah.
Last weekend, man, he was hustling.
Yeah, really good. And those are two tracks he's always been good at. Atomic is a place he's good at. So yeah, they've done a good job with their program as well. That's one of the lone rocket cars we've seen that's been pretty sporty at the beginning of this year. A lot of it's been Longhorn stuff. So it's good to see a guy like Josh have some success right out the gate.
I think when you also look at we got to definitely, when you look at the top 25, two guys come to mind that aren't on that list to me. And they're good friends of mine too, Brian Shirley and Tim McCready.
Yeah.
We both know Brian's had the Florida, the fire, it just, anything could happen, screwdrivers and tires. I mean, it was crazy the way it started. And then Timmy's just had some bad luck too, and it showed he didn't have a lot of speed at times. And but naturally, you look at Timmy last week, he started rebounding, built a little bit last week. Yeah. Hopefully that'll be something to continue to come.
Yeah, you got like Timmy, you don't really keep down for long. Eventually he's going to figure it out. Brian as well. I mean, even you go down there and you get killed down there at Speed Weeks for those guys, just one after another. And that's tough to rebound from when, for one, you're wore out every night from fixing your shit. But two, it's just hard because you're already down there with 60 other guys trying to beat them. So yeah, I would look for Brian to definitely rebound. I think a lot of Brian. He's helped me a lot through my career. We've raced a ton of races against each other. We were parked next to each other down at Springfield, and we got to talk that day just kind of about how chaotic Speed Weeks was for him. And man, just hearing kind of what all they went through and just the different things and the cost, and it's an insurmountable amount, of the things they endured in Speed Weeks. So I think get back home, get back into the Midwest, and you'll see them guys pick up some confidence.
Well, you raced with him in Springfield, and you saw right off the bat the first night comes out wins.
Yeah, he smoked us.
So and Bob Cullen gives him everything he needs to win races. Yeah. And I just think that both of those guys are going to turn the corner. Yeah. I mean, we're going to see them. And I think in closing on our top 25, I think we're ready to get our boy on the phone here and talk a little about this big event this weekend. Yeah.
Well, it's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be neat to our first show bring on a special guest. Pretty cool. For one, that's a sponsor of mine. Also a sponsor of the show, but with Jeff Hoker and Hoker Trucking having the Nippy 50 this upcoming weekend, which is really the marquee event for this weekend. It's going to be pretty cool to get with him on here and talk about, a lot of different things that with a guy that gives back a ton to our sport.
I am really excited about this because I don't know too much about him, and I'm really excited. His personality is kind of flamboyant a little bit, so he enjoys. He's got a great smile. He's got that smirk smile.
Oh yeah, it's even bigger when he's got a Coors Light in his hand.
So I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be great.
Yeah.
First of all, we've got Jeff Hoker on our first podcast today on the Dirt Parlor. And Jeff, welcome to the show, man. We're excited about having you. You got a great personality, and one of the things that I've always been interested about you is I wonder, how'd you get into racing?
Well, hey, I'm thankful for Michael.
You're thankful for my wife.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. No.
And for those that don't know, Jeff's wife Penny she's a wonderful woman, very supportive, and helps run the business when Jeff's out running around. And it's a great story watching the two of you. I always enjoy seeing your vacations and everything else. You guys live life to the fullest, and I think it's awesome. Did you have a favorite driver? Did you have a favorite driver that you were watching when you were going to the races that you liked watching?
So I grew up with the Kais, okay? Ricky Kai and Brenda Kai and the entire family. And of course, Justin Kai, I've known him since he was, a baby. I mean, so obviously I watched Justin race, obviously, right? I mean, that was just, that's what he's done for God, as long as I can remember, once a kid started racing. So that's really how we started sponsoring late models, actually, was Justin.
Okay. Well, I noticed that you're like all over. I mean, the people that you sponsor, great personalities, number one. First of all, G-Man here with Gordy, and then I noticed Justin, and then, of course, with Squirrel and Feger and Simpson, and of course, RTJ, and then now with Gustin. I mean, it's a great library.
Yeah.
We've been honestly, we've been really lucky. The guys we sponsored, all of them are great guys. I mean, it's the sponsorship to us is just kind of part of it. I mean, the bonus is that they're all our friends. All of them. We hang out. Gordy, was at Simpson's race party a couple weeks ago. I mean, just I get phone calls and text messages, and it's not just, hey, can you send me some more money, or can you do, it's, hey, what's going on? How's the wife? How's the kids? I mean, that's really what the sponsorship's all about to us.
Yeah, I think we talk on the phone at least twice a week, and normally it's never about racing. That's kind of one of my favorite things about it. It's like, I look at Jeff as, which quick backstory is the reason this all happened was because we were at Chad Simonson's wedding, and I was over. We had drank beer all day. And I finally just walked over and I said, man, you give all these other guys money. Can't I get some? and we laughed about it, and I don't remember what ended up happening, and Jeff's like, you know what? Hell with it. I'll help you out. I'll do something for it.
There was a bet involved, and I don't remember what the bet was. It started with a bet, and I honestly don't.
Well,
I don't have ring so many. I don't remember what it was. Adam probably does, because she was way more sober than we were.
Yeah, I know I was not sober that night, not at all.
Definitely liquor was involved.
Yeah, we had been carrying on all day for that wedding, so, and we didn't stop right after the reception was over either. So, but it's just, and it's turned into a hell of a lot more than just having Hoker Trucking on the side of the race car. I've become obviously great friends with them. Hell, we spend so much time together. Chris and I park together everywhere. So Jeff's always down there with us. Michael's down there with us. We get to see Penny, which is our favorite Hoker to see. So that's that's the whole part that's about it. He's exactly right. It's a family deal.
The big thing is, next year you got the big race this week, at the Nippy 50, and I'd like to know more about how naturally you take the business. You got the sponsorship going on with the drivers and stuff, and now you're in the promoting side of the business. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about the promoting side and how the sponsorships have helped that, and and just kind of how it's evolved.
So I guess I don't know if it was a lapse in judgment. I don't know. I really got thinking about it a few years ago, and so once again I'll go back to the guys. So when Ricky and Brenda started doing weekly racing, probably about 4 years ago now, I think it was, in Davenport, we were actually at a bar again on one night, and Ricky come in and he goes, hey, I got a phone call, and got asked, to promote Davenport Speedway weekly stuff, and he's like, I don't know, and I said, Ricky, do it. I said, man. I said, I'll help you out. I'll do whatever I can, and I'll support you, and we'll try and grow that place. And man, Ricky and Brenda did huge things at Davenport, right? And I was just lucky to be a small part of that and helping them along the ride. So fast forward a few years, and some things didn't work out there and whatnot. And I thought, we're doing all this other stuff with drivers and racers, and we're helping out some shows and that. And I thought, why not try and do some of our own stuff? And so I talked to Penny about it. She thought I was absolutely out of my freaking mind, but she agreed, because Penny always does. And, without her, I can't do none of this. I'm dead honest. Without her, I can't do any of this stuff. She does all the social media and all that. But so we just decided, let's try it. So we had an opportunity last year to do this Nippy 50, and two other great friends of mine, Ryan Doom and Timmy Kerr, and I got with them, Dark Side Promotions, and I said, hey, listen, I'm thinking about doing this, and you guys want in on it. And they're not late model guys. They're not super late model promoters, right? They do some great shows here, some some modified and the, fall bash and that, with, the modifieds and sport mods and that. And man, they drew huge crowds and huge car counts. And I thought, they said, yeah, let's try it. So, we jumped in there and Maquoketa Speedway and the fairgrounds up there said, yeah, we'd love to have it and let's give it a shot. And as far as for the promotion side of it, with what we've done in racing throughout the last 10 years or so, it really helped when we decided to do this with support. I mean, people come out of the woodwork saying, hey, we just want to be a part of it. What can we do to help? And drivers and crews that came, from all over. And this year it's even growing more. So, I mean, it's paying back to us now from that. And man, we appreciate it because we can't do it. We can't do what we're doing here without all that support too,
Well, the big thing is like Friday, 10,000 to win, 1,000 to start. Then Saturday you go 15,000 to win and 2,000 to start.
Yeah.
I mean, it's healthy.
Yeah.
And I think it's awesome. I think it's great. And with Matt Kroll coming in with the Mars series, Matt's a good friend of mine. And I know last year you had like 30 cars. I look forward to the car count to be even bigger.
Yeah, definitely.
And the thing that I love about this event is, and Gordy and I were touching base with, you're going to have a great mix. You got some World of Outlaw drivers going to be in the house. You got Lucas guys going to be in the house. You got the Marge, the regional guys. I was looking at the list. I mean, if these guys were just there by themselves, it's worth going. You could RJ, Sheppy, Alberson, Gustin, Squirrel, and with Figure and Unzicker and G-Man and Bab and both Simps. My gosh, man. Dude, it's going to be tough to break inside the top 10 just with that group.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's one thing I think that's cool about it, right? It's like we're sitting here going at the end of March, weather, you never know what it's going to do, what it looks like, and you got all these guys who are confirmed that they're coming to race because in reality, you're for one, not only is Jeff promotes our sport, promotes racers, does all those things, but that's one of the best payouts we're going to find anywhere, and that's something we've all complained about, and we need more paying down through the top 10 and into the top 15 and those things. And hell, you go in there for a regional guy and you make both races, it's $3,000 to go home with. That's unheard of really anywhere else. There's not many races you're going to be able to go do that, and that's really, really spectacular because that's what our sport needs more of. And we've talked about it plenty of times, how we make it better for everybody around here. And it's like, as everybody sit here and complains and doesn't, it's like, well, put your money where your mouth is. And now here, Jeff is and all these guys putting out a lot of money in a weekend in March, for a regional race where you can go and make some money, and you're going to see a lot of damn good race cars.
Oh, it's impressive.
I've been big on this the last couple of years of, like Gordy said, we see a lot of races that are not a lot, but we see a fair share. It seems like more of a year that pay 20,000 and 30,000, 25,000, 50,000 to win. And they pay, 1,000 to start, which that's nothing to scoff at. Don't get me wrong, but it takes every car in that field to make a race. It takes, if we're starting 22 with Mars, it takes all 22 cars to make a show, and it costs that guy that comes and races 20 seconds the same as it costs that guy for the most part that's going to come and race the top 5 or 2 or 3 or win. So I've said for a long time, we've got to get the payouts there to where these guys want to come and race. We've got to make it worth their time to get there. So I didn't want to do something where I didn't put my money where my mouth was. Like I've been saying it. So if I was going to do a race and promote a race, like that's what I thought I had to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And talk about the racetrack a little bit. The racetrack's, it's a 3/8 mile, it's got some banking in it, and I watched the highlights even today. I was watching a little bit of the highlights, and, and RTJ, of course, put on a show like he always does.
Right.
It's a good racetrack.
It's one of the best kept gyms I think around in Iowa, in eastern Iowa, in this part. There's never been a lot of big super shows there. Mars has been there in the past, and when we were doing the SLMR series, we did for a few years. SLMR has been there every year. Man, there's been some great races there. I think it was 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and I believe it was MLRA race up there. I know it was MLRA when Pierce and Simpson, Chris beat Bobby. They ran 1-2, but man, that was a hell of a race. And we used that actually for some highlights to promote last year's Nippy 50 because it was a great race. And last year, we got Ricky Kiner doing the track, man. I said, I'll never do a show that Ricky's not a part of. there's some great track prep guys out there. Don't get me wrong, but I'll put him up there with anybody in the country when it comes to track prep.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a huge part of getting this thing in last year. And if you've seen our World of Outlaws show there last year in August, I mean, we got everything thrown at us. We got an inch and a half of rain, inch and a quarter of rain at 4:30 in the afternoon. I mean, and it rained 3 times on us trying to get hot laps in and qualifying in. And man, Ricky just said, "Yeah, we'll get it done. We'll get it in," and we got it in. I mean, that's huge. But that track, it's a big quarter mile. You know, man, it produces some great racing. Like you said, if you watch the highlights,
it's impressive. Watch it, you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's it, Gordy? Like 4 or 5 hours for you?
It's 5.5 for me. Yeah, it's 5.5 for me. But you know, I'm a bull ring style guy and true in, true out anyways. And man, when we went there last year in March, you know, hell, it was as racy as it could be. And I wasn't really expecting, I didn't have high expectations. I'd never been there, didn't know what we were going to get. And I mean, we raced all over that damn thing, you know, and then we had dealt with the rain that weekend. Hell, it was cold. There was snow on the ground, not but a week or two before it, you know, like yeah, you know, and then, I mean, hell, it was wet enough that they had to pull, I mean, they pulled, I don't know how many of us out of the pit area after, because we were stuck down in there, you know, everybody sharing tow ropes and getting drug out of there, but you wouldn't have known it by looking at the racetrack, you know, which was impressive. And that goes to say a lot for what Ricky Kai does, you know. Every time we always went and ran Davenport, you always knew if the racetrack was starting to get bad or losing where it was getting one lane, Ricky was going to go out there and he was going to give you 2-3 lanes of race all over it. And that's one of the big things about going to any of their events. If I know Ricky Kai's working on the racetrack, I promise you I'll go, because he's just one of those guys that knows exactly what he's doing, and he's not afraid to go out there and work on it. He does not care what you tell him to do. He's going to do it exactly how he wants to do it.
And Jeff, I got to ask you, like, the course of, like, I got to know, like, your itinerary a little bit this week. It's kind of getting a little bit crazy. You know, we got the business and everything else. So kind of, you know, and I know you got these clowns coming in to hang out with too. So you got to balance work a little bit with some other shenanigans. Yeah. You know, so kind of like walk me through a little bit about this, how this weekend's going to go.
I was telling my wife today, I don't know what is more stressful, trucking and running a trucking company or trying to promote racing. Like sometimes this week, so y'all seen the weather this week, right? Like, you know, they've been talking since last weekend, the weather is going to be shitty and whatnot. So you're like, what do we do? Do we try and do this thing? Do we cancel early? What do we do? And now tonight we just watched the weather, and all this weather's moving south. They're like, yeah, they're taking pretty much almost all of it out. It's going to be 80 degrees on Friday. But that's the highs and the lows of like, Jesus, now, you know, this morning I'm thinking, man, it ain't looking good. Now tonight I'm like, God damn, we're racing. I got a lot of work to do. Luckily, I got great help, though. I got great office staff. I got great backup. Michael's here in the office and runs it when I'm gone. He'll be up the races this weekend, but he's going to have to come back down here Friday and run the office while I'm up there trying to get ready. But once again, we got so much good help. Like I said, Ricky he takes care of the track. So I talked to him today, and I talk to him every day, but I'm like, yeah, you know, what do you think? And yesterday he's like, oh, we'll get it in. Don't worry about it. Yeah, we're good. Let's race. You know? And, I mean, that helps. When you got a guy like that saying, listen, I got it. Don't worry about it. You know.
Well, that's incredible.
Well, that's what I called him. I guess I called Hoker yesterday and asked him, I said, damn, did you piss in Mother Nature's Cheerios, or what'd you do? Because she doesn't want to give you any good weather, you know, for this weekend. And he said, hell, I don't know. And I mean, now it's just part of it. And that's the part of promoting that's, you know, the toughest deal is you sit here and stare it down. But you applaud a guy like that for really wanting to go out and, take a step out on a limb and put on an event and says, hell with it, we're going for it. Even though you know that you're the one taking all the risk, which is what a lot of people don't want to do, and that's something that's admirable. For one, I'm not going to give you too much credit. I don't want to pat your back too hard, but it's cool to see, because we have to have guys like Jeff, and Ricky and all them guys in our sport to help our sport grow, which is what we all want to see.
It's funny. I was talking to Mark Richards yesterday, and the biggest concern that Mark was telling me yesterday, he goes, the number one factor, he goes, people can talk about all the race cars and everything they want, is track prep right now. And to hear that, and you guys talk about track prep, Man, Mark Richards, when he sees us, is going to be smiling. He goes, I told you, Martin. I told you. It's all about track prep.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's exciting to hear, like, you got the driver's side talking about how hard, and you're talking about your right-hand man doing that, and that's exciting. As a racer, I always hear the racer always say one thing, and Scott Bloomquist used to say it better. He goes, dude, I work on my race car all week, so you can work on your racetrack too.
Yeah. Yep.
You know,
like Ricky's biggest thing is he don't want to spend an hour doing track prep. Nobody wants to sit there in the stands seeing that. I mean, we've all sat in the stands watching the race, and they spend an hour doing track. I mean, sometimes they can't help it. I'm not trying to throw, a stone at anybody, but Ricky's like, listen, we can get this thing prepped in 10 to 18 minutes. We'll be ready to go. I mean, I think that's huge for the crowd. That's especially this time of year, especially in the stands.
Yeah.
Well, right. You're running low on time, and the weather gets colder the longer the night goes, and everybody's now is about, we gotta get these shows done quick and fast, and you get an hour-long track prep, and it is probably the worst thing you could ever have if you're sitting in the grandstands. It's easy if you're sitting at home watching on Flow, you just go to the fridge and get you a beer or two or 5 or however many Jeff would drink in that time, but it's like it is a big deal when you knock something out in 15, 20 minutes and get them guys right back on the racetrack. I mean, that travels a long way with a lot of, not just people in the stands, with the racers. I mean, hell, we don't want to sit there all night either. The longer we got to sit and wait, we got to reheat the motors back up and do all those different things. So, yeah, like I said it earlier, that's one thing about Ricky, man. If he's going to go out and work on it, it's going to be ready in a hurry. It's not going to take all night.
and the other thing I'd like to talk to about a little bit and closing a little bit with you, Jeff, is there I'd like to know, like, is there something on your mind, anything you want to talk about? And we've talked about the Nippy 50 and your business, everything else, and this is kind of your platform. You got the mic. Anything you want to talk about,
I don't know. I mean, there's so many things a guy could talk about.
Go.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just lucky to have been involved in the sport really for a short amount of time compared to a lot of guys. To be lucky enough to have the guys we've had and sponsor the guys we sponsored and win some of the shows we've won. I've got a World 100 trophy sitting right there.
I see.
I mean, thanks to Bobby Pierce. I mean, that was all Bobby this year, and
Yep.
I mean, we've just been lucky to have some great guys. And once again, I think a lot of guys don't think about, and luckily I think all of my guys do. Gordy, all of them, it's not just about racing, when it comes to sponsorships, right? I think the people who come in and want to spend the money sponsoring, of course they want their name on the car. Of course they want to be in victory lane. They want to get mentioned, all that. That's all part of it, but a bigger part of it, I think, for guys to keep in mind that if you want to keep guys a long time is just let them know they appreciate it, just anything outside of racing. I think that's huge. It is to us. And I know I've talked to a lot of other sponsors, some guys who do a lot of stuff, and everybody we've always agreed on that same thing. Sponsors tough right now. Our economy is shit. We all know it. Like it's, I mean, even us trying to get sponsors for this year's race, like, I saw it and we've noticed it. I mean, it's tough, so if you can build them and get them guys and keep them on, keep them, as like Gordy said, it's more like a family deal, man. I mean, there's guys that I'll be on until the day I'm done doing it. And it's guys I'm on, quite frankly. I mean, we're not looking for new guys and whatnot. And it's, the guys we have are we got a great group of guys and we appreciate what they do, they all appreciate what we do. And we know that. And I think that to us, that's huge.
Well, I can tell you, we appreciate you coming on the show and being a part of us. I mean, it's huge for us, and we couldn't do it without people like you. And I can't thank you enough for being a part of this.
I think this is a great thing you guys are doing. I told Gordy this when he asked me about it, and I'm excited to see where this goes. I mean, I know there's a lot of more stuff at some point, to get out here on the table, but I think this is a great idea. And I know Steve from Nutrien jumped in there and help you guys out in that. And we hope to come in and help you guys some more too. So thank you guys for doing this. I think it's much needed in our sport.
No, we appreciate you, Jeff. And we had talked about this when we started, getting ready to do this deal. And I thought it would be great to, what the Dirt Parlor is all about is bringing light to guys like you, but, racers across the country just in general that, maybe don't get to share that spotlight with the guys who win every weekend or the track promoters or the series directors and all those people. And I think it's going to be cool. I think it's going to be real fun when we get to some of this controversial stuff that God knows is going to happen this summer, and we really get to have some people on and some talks.
He's
and
going to be on again.
Oh, absolutely.
He's on again. Some shit breaks loose.
Yeah.
How about you shit at the wall the very first one? So let's wait for that till later.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we had to just get through the first one pretty smooth. We'll get it clean and get out of here. But yeah, no, we really appreciate everything you do,
yes.
For the sport, and we appreciate you coming on. I can't wait to get up there this weekend and race at Maquoketa and indulge in some adult beverages as soon as the races are done.
God, I'm tempted now to drive on
like
up.
Shit again, like you did after Simpsons.
I did. I felt miserable that next day. We went to Simpson's race party, and man, I woke up the next day and did not even want to get out of bed. Couldn't even hardly do it, and then had to trek all the way home, and it was, oh God, it was awful. I texted him. I said, man, I feel miserable from the night before. Oh God, it was rough. But you know what? That's what's cool about it. We have a lot of fun anywhere we go. Every time our groups are together and the people we hang out with, and that's what's so great about this sport in general is just the people you get in your life, and the stuff that you get to do with them and enjoy with them, and we couldn't be more thankful for it all.
It's the relationships.
Yeah, 100%.
And I've said it before, I think the biggest thing with what we're trying to do here is we want to grow the sport. That's our goal, is to grow the sport and be able to tackle some issues. And I'm excited about where we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think dirt racing is one of the best places it's been in a long time, other than a few things that we all know are going to have to change, which I'm sure you guys will talk about that here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So, awesome, Jeff. Well, we appreciate you, man, and we'll see you in a couple days.
Damn, I need to make my way up there this week. I just want to say thanks to Steve Martin and Nutrien for coming on board with the Dirt Parlor. Without you, this would not be happening. Gordy and I respect the hell out of you, first of all, and can't thank you enough again for being a part of this and making this dream come true for Gordy and I.
Yeah. So make sure you like and subscribe the Dirt Parlor and tune in next week.